Okay, the recording has started.
Okay, so today is Wednesday, October 12th. It's now 7:38 p.m. and I am calling the meeting of the Education Youth Committee to order. Um, we currently have two committee members on. I'm just going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Mr. Lewis, Electrical Corp. You're the first one on my screen. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Osney Lewis, board member, committee member.
Thank you. Miss McCain.
Monica McCain Brown, committee member of Youth and Education Committees.
Mr. Lewis, from Councilwoman Farrar Lewis. Hey, Daniel. There you go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Heredia from Councilmember Farrar Lewis's office, and it's great to be joining you all.
Thank you for joining us, Daniel. I'm going to turn on my camera also. Not at my best, but okay. And Miss Frazier, can you please introduce yourself also?
Certainly. Shabri Fraser, District Manager, Community Board 70.
Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. As we move on, we don't have any minutes to approve and we don't have a quorum, so I'm going to have to defer that to the next meeting. Chairperson's report, next thing on the on the agenda. I just want to first start off that, every meeting that we have, I'm going to talk about our norms. I want it to be relayed at every meeting because I want us to continue working with a culture of professionalism and respect for each other. And I want us to be very mindful of each other's opinions or comments that we may have, and that, being respectful and speaking to the opinions or comments that are made and not speaking to the persons or holding anything personal. Next, I want, as I just said it, starting meetings on time because I want to remain mindful of people's time and how important it is. And being that these meetings are at 7:30, I consider this family time. So people taking the time out of those precious moments is very valuable. And time is something that we can never get back.
Good evening. This is Barry.
Good evening, Mr. Barrett. How are you?
I hope I'm fine.
I hope you
Trying
are
to
too.
survive.
Yes. I'm just giving the chairperson's report. We do not have full quorum. We only have two other members on, and Daniel from Miss Councilwoman Farrar Lewis's office. I see Miss Mickle is joining us
Hey,
also.
hello.
And Miss Mickle, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
I'm just going to continue giving the chairperson report. It is not very long. Attendance, once again, we are following the bylaws of the board where it comes to attendance, where it's 3 consecutive um, misses without any excuses, that we will be removing people from the committee of the books. And our first vice chair is going to be following up with our chairs to make sure that they are getting full attendance. Luckily for us as a committee, we do not get many requests where we need to vote on matters, but that doesn't mean that we are not, in attendance, because there are other planning sessions and stuff that we need to do. And if we have guests that we're inviting, you know, we want people to see that, we brought them there for a purpose. Okay. One other thing I saw popped in the email today, that CC is hosting a workshop on community boards and the city's 2022 budget. It's scheduled for October 19th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. If you are interested in attending, I'm going to drop the link in the chat because I think that you have to register for it. So all community boards members are welcome. So if it's something that's of interest to you, please feel free to attend. Also, I want to say that, the personnel committee is still in the stages of hiring a ADM, and that process is moving ahead. As soon as it's completed, we'll be able to add more staff into the office to assist Ms. Frazier, as our other two secretaries are still out on either sick leave or reasonable accommodations. So that is the end of my report. Good evening, Ms. Brackadine. How are you?
I'm well. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Happy to have you.
How's everyone doing?
As best as we can. I'm sorry. So I am going to go over to Daniel from Councilwoman First Lewis's office. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and I have a couple of things I'm hoping that he can give us some insight on, or you can let us know what is happening, what the councilwoman is doing, and if they're not in the realm of the questions that I had, then we'll go back to that. So, Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry, Daniel, the floor is all yours.
Thank you for the introduction, and it's great. Despite not reaching quorum, we're always appreciative that Community Board 17 is dedicated to making these meetings and being transparent with the processes. So I appreciate everyone who's on this call right now for being here and for being on the call. So my name is Daniel. I am on this call to both introduce myself and to share my updates. A lot of us have not met before. The last meeting I was on with Community Board 17 was with the Land Use Committee. I'm introducing myself both to share updates and also to, so you can recognize me around the district. I started working for Councilmember Farrah Lewis in the 45th District in June. So I'm, very excited to be continuing our partnership and working on advancing development as it pertains to community outreach specifically. So it is great to meet all of you. And in terms of education related items, so as you all know, the biggest priority for us in the office, and as you all know, a lot of the asylum seekers situation is developing. And today, and in the past couple of days, the mayor has indicated that this has gotten to the situation regarding the asylum seekers and the influx of people into the shelter system is now reached a point where we are in a state of emergency. So what that means is that the city is taking into account the amount of people coming into every district and being more vigilant about allocating resources to our schools. So as it pertains to education in Community Board 17, we've received a few requests from the principals of the schools here to allocate more resources for after-school supplemental programs for people who are not necessarily making, or people who are struggling or falling behind due to language barriers and due to lack of resources at home. So, in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be working with both the DOE and DHS to make sure that the amount of people coming into the shelter system and who are coming into the school system is not negatively impacting the level of education that our students in the district are receiving. So definitely want to make sure that everyone is aware of that, because we definitely want to make sure that people are aware that people will have the resources going in and the parents are going to continue to be informed about the situation at hand. So that's the first primary point. The second point that I'd like to bring up regarding education is namely for the development as we go into the winter, making sure that the bus situation is resolved. So we have been getting, I'm not sure if Community Board 17 has been aware, but we have been getting a lot more inquiries about the education in terms of placement. So we had a lot of people who were calling about placement into high schools and about the adjusted program. We're currently working with DOE to make sure that, that kids applying for high school are going onto their ranked selections, to make sure that kids are being matched with the appropriate schools that they so desire, and to making sure that we have a collaborative process so that people have the correct pathway into the schools that they want to be going into in terms of the high school and middle school admissions process. So that was something that over the last month has been a major priority for our office based on the amount of calls that we've been getting. So my colleague Sabrina, which many of you have been familiar with, has been taking those cases, and we've been working collaboratively to make sure that we've resolved those cases where students have applied for schools but they were not able to get in despite their stellar track record or performance. So that's a major priority for us. And before I open it up to questions, both from our chair and both from the community here, I also do want to mention that we are having, relating to school, we are having two major opportunities for the community to directly improve funding at some of the schools in the district. So I'm glad to see John Beckerdine here, because we were just talking about it earlier. We're having two major participatory budgeting events on the council side for capital improvements to our schools. The first one is going to be tomorrow, which is going to be at the Glenwood Houses Community Center. It's a little bit to the east of Community Board 17, but it's not too far, and we do implore everybody to go who would be able to speak their voice about this to come. Basically, participatory budgeting on the council side is meant to increase capital funding and capital projects in our district. So that covers all of the area of Community Board 17, and also covers small parts of 14 and 18, but I definitely want to bring it up now, as this is a great opportunity for people to suggest projects that cost up to $1 million for improving our schools. So that can include adding new additions to the schools in terms of new technology, repairing the playgrounds, upgrading facilities within the school, and other projects that affect your neighborhood. So the first one in the next couple of weeks is going to be tomorrow at the Glenwood House Community Center. I'll put the details in the chat. And the next one is going to be at the Flatbush YMCA on the west side of the district. So that's the Flatbush YMCA right on Flatbush Avenue and Rogers Avenue. So I'll put the details of that in the chat, but if any of you are interested in improving funding for the schools in the district, I highly recommend you come and suggest some ideas, and because we really want to make sure that our voices are heard so we can advocate for up to $1 million in these projects. Thank you so much for the time, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Daniel, for that update. Before I say anything, does anyone have any questions for Daniel?
Yes. Hold on, let me turn on my video. Good evening again.
Good evening.
Yeah, so one of my concerns is for those people that are above what we consider school age. In particular, the folks that maybe graduate from high school, 18 to 21, 18 to 25, that range. And sometimes those young people are neglected. One of my suggestions in particular is developing programs, or at least having a similar program to the adult training center that is up on 92nd Street. There's one up on 92nd Street. There's one in Bedford-Stuyvesant on, I think, Macon and Nostrand, adult training. But I don't think we have an adult training center of that magnitude in our community. Our community is largely of immigrants, and trade has been the bread and butter of our community. And I think we got to get back to that. In particular, none of the high schools in our immediate community board has a CTE program, career and technical education. So a lot of the young people that are not, how I would say, college bound, college material, there are other ways to get an income, but there's not enough exposure. So this is important in particular because of the new construction or the Shirley Chisholm Recreational Center. All right. So there's a lot of education in that fact in terms of getting your SST, which is your site safety training, to work on a job like that. All of these things needs to be facilitated. I have been a part of what they call the STAR program, which set up 2 electrical programs, one in Erasmus High School, one in Boys and Girls. And they have a program which gives you your OSHA training for your 40-hour SST. So from the time you leave school, you could work on a construction site in New York City, any construction site. I think that is something that would help give another avenue to the young people who may not be able to pay for college, did not receive the scholarships, did not receive the funding to go, and they need to find something to do. We always know the saying, devil find work for idle hands. You have a lot of disgruntled, unhappy young people, and social media has created some of that unhappiness because now, they don't feel good, or they stick in a corner, or they hide inside. So there has to be a way in which we could get some funding for a program to show them another way in order to become viable citizens in the community. So that's one of my most important things, that we don't leave out that 18 to 25. We don't leave them out, because if you leave those folks out, the other folks who are coming behind, they might be going in the same direction as those 18 to 25.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else? Any comments? The comments? So, Daniel, first I hear you talking about the participatory budgeting. I'm glad to see that we're getting that underway. Last fiscal year, we've been trying to do that with Councilwoman Rita Joseph and Councilwoman Farr Lewis. We were trying to reach out to the principals in the schools. Well, even school personnel. One of the things that Councilwoman Joseph has said is that she thought that a lot of schools did not participate in that process, and it was really important for them. And there could have been a number of reasons why they were not participating in it. And like one of the things, filling out that request might have been, struggle for some, as the application might not be as clear, the things that she was seeing. So I'm glad that that is back on track. And was this an invitation that was sent out to the schools and the CBOs and stuff in the community for them to be there? Because this is impactful for them. Do you know what was the marketing around it?
Yes, thank you for that question. So far, some of our biggest partners, one of our biggest partners, two of them actually, both Elite Learners and Flatbush Development Corporation, if you're familiar, has been super influential in assisting with the outreach process over the past couple of weeks, where we were having some more meetings targeted towards the sort of the southern part of the district, the Flatlands area, and now we're migrating to the top of the district, East Flatbush. So this is something that we're considering. I definitely do second that statement about some of the schools have not been as engaged, only because I believe there's a barrier in terms of not everyone knows what this can do for them. there was a lot of, I believe, this was predates when I was involved in PB, but so what I've heard anecdotally is that in the past there hasn't been a lot of communication about what is eligible and what isn't eligible, right? So this time we're trying to get everybody out to the assemblies so then we can really explain step by step what what will work under this funding. So then once we actually turn those ideas into proposals, we will be able to say, hey, DOE, School Construction Authority, this is exactly what the community wants. Price it out. Is this something that's feasible? And making sure that we go into that conversation saying we already have a strong proposal that we know fits all the guidelines, instead of getting doing requests for, say, oh, add an art teacher. Well, unfortunately, that is a great idea, but that will not pass this muster, or
Right.
an after school program will not pass this muster. There is another participatory budgeting process in the city right now, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. That's the link that you posted in the chat. That one covers some of those things, but it's a different process. So the one that we're trying to do is really for capital improvements for playgrounds and things like that. So we're actually targeting more of like the parents to come make those requests. The principals do not have to be so involved in this process because this is something where we can say the parents and the children, have these needs. So then once we go in out next month and say, go to the School Construction Authority, say, well, everyone seems to want a new playground, right? This is what we need to do. And this is how we need to achieve that. So we're trying to be a little bit more clear about that messaging. So in short, to answer your question, it's definitely we're targeting more of the parent side. So then we can make sure we get that get that clarification on the ground.
Thank you. Another question is, the first thing you start out talking about asylum seekers and the impact that they're having on the city economic playground. For our community, is there a record? Is there data that shows for these young people who are in our schools or youth programs or what, the amount of people that have been brought into the community, and not necessarily where they're placed, but I would say the number that have impacted our schools? Do we have data around that to know how many really have come into our schools and community? Is that something that is being tracked by your office, or that's the overall city's tracking?
Right. Thank you for that question as well. So they give us, so it's a little bit tough with them. They don't like they don't have granular data like that. So it's hard to say, oh, these asylum seekers, this is the amount that's enrolled in a particular school. They have that data in some scales, but it's not something that we have access to. What we do have is we do have a percentage of how many of the total asylum seekers in the city are coming in are school age. So the percentage is roughly in the 30s, meaning that this is something that across the city, since Brooklyn is receiving is receiving a large amount of asylum seekers, and we've already had shelters open up in the neighborhood, right? Because of these things, we can infer just by knowing that a lot of the people that a lot of the students are going into the schools, and DOE has allocated a lot more funding and a lot more teachers to help them. But the request that I mentioned was a few principals are asking for after school programs, because even though that there's more teachers now who are getting hired aggressively to help with the asylum seeker situation, they're still falling behind. And so from an equity standpoint, if we're not adding more resources for some of these kids who need additional, English second language programs, additional reading programs, et cetera, then we aren't doing our job and make sure that we have an equitable school environment. So this is sort of data point that we're getting, that we know that the DOE is doing their best to match the teacher load. Now we're actually trying to get more supplemental programs. And that's So that's what to assist with the 30% of asylum seekers who are coming in, who are
Okay.
school age.
I get it that we're not going to get the exact numbers, but my concern is that, you know, as chair of education and youth, and we know that some of our schools have been struggling, um, economically wise, resourceful wise. How do we know how can we advocate for them for more resources, right? Because it's not like we're saying, oh, there are more school age kids, because families are growing within the community where mom and dad are having more kids or what. We're having a sudden influx of kids in our schools. And we know that our neighborhood schools are not equitably funded. They're not equitably resources. So I think it's important for us to know, and it's not to judge anyone or to say not in my backyard. It's not about that. It's about advocating where, as a community, how can we advocate to get more resources in our schools so that our children are not being held back or sit back, whatever you want to call it. But who are those schools that are seeing that influx, and how, as we as a community, can advocate for more funding or whatever it may be. It may be from DOE, it might be from private sources, but I think this is something that interests me, right? I am not one to judge anyone for coming here or for or we just don't know where the city is placing these kids in our communities. But I am hearing from you that our schools are saying, hey, we need a bit more funding, resources, other things, because we have, these kids coming in. So, I just want to say, how can we help? How can we help the advocacy, function of this to help those schools?
Yeah, and thank you for that as well. It's definitely a lot of this is grassroots and comes from the ground.
Yeah.
Every time we have a briefing with the commissioner of DHS, the council member that's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, what are we doing about the schools who've, as you mentioned, have already been struggling with an inequitable funding structure, especially, after the emergency funding from the feds ran out. Now we're going back into a lower enrollment. A lot more kids have dropped out. A lot more people have moved. We're trying to deal with these questions. So I think the strategy amongst our office right now, and we have a meeting tomorrow with them as well, right? So we're basically advocating, say this is an opportunity to rethink how we're doing this. Instead of always reacting to an emergency, we need to be more proactive and say, you know what, these kids, they need new whiteboards all the time. It's not just because you're turning other rooms into classrooms now that you want to buy more whiteboards. It's like, actually, this something should be continuous. And this is why things like participatory budgeting is important, because participatory budgeting has been around for almost a decade now. It's about trying to make sure that people's voices are being heard and knowing where the issues are. If the principals and the teachers are coming out and saying, this is, we need new whiteboards, and this is something we could make a case for now, especially now that we have this emergency declaration. There might be more funds to play with. So if you know of specific, I'll put my contact in the chat as well. If you know of specific cases or specific needs that need to be addressed in certain schools in terms of a capital level, this is something that we want to know about now. So when we go into the meetings with DOE, with Department of Homeless Services, we could say, while you're doing all of this, don't forget about us, because in our Black and brown communities, they don't want to care about us, but we're already getting a disproportionate amount of asylum seekers. The least you could do is to fund our schools. So
Right.
that's kind of the idea.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yes,
Question.
please. Ms.
Have you
Smith.
been able to carry out a survey of the schools to see what they need? What-
Yes, so thank you for that question. So we've been working on on a survey to distribute. To first, we're going to be doing it to for like teachers and the principals, administrators. Then it's going to be rolled out to general population, even students and parents. We've been a lot more informed about it recently, directly from the principals. The principal has been a lot more, all of the schools in our district have been a lot more vocal about it now because of the situation that's going on. In the past, it was sort of like, oh, well, by the way, we have this. Now it's a lot more urgent. So we've been in communication with a lot of our principals, especially the elementary school ones, I will say, to see if they can get more resources, both in terms of more funding for teachers and after school programs, because that's sort of, in order to meet that need, that's where this coming in. So we've really been hearing it from, in terms of like a informal survey, it's been coming a lot from the principals, but we hope to get some more feedback from parents and students soon.
Okay.
Thank you. My last question is around youth programs. Ms. Frazier, what I know that we had the whole thing about a recreational center for the community, and I haven't heard much about it. It just makes me wonder, like, is that, Ms. Frazier, do you know, is that still on track?
Are we talking about the Shirley Chisholm Recreational Center?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually received a telephone call and I am waiting on an email to they're planning on making a presentation to either the committee or the board. I don't know what the chairperson will decide, but I did request to have that information in writing. I will then forward it to the chair of the board to determine whether or not that presentation should be made to the committee or the full board. That's a determination that would have to be made by the chair. But yes, the funds are allocated, so yeah, it's on track. And
Okay, because
I'll also add to that, if I may.
Yes.
We've been asking DDC to provide us an update for months. And they also have been corresponding with our office as well, starting literally a week and a half ago.
A week and a half ago, that's correct.
Yeah, so they want to have a meeting with the council member, which I'm trying to schedule for next week as well. And we've been trying to push for more outreach, because the original plan that they gave us, they were only going to meet with the Parks Committee. And Councilmember Lewis, the first thing she said was, that's not enough outreach. So hopefully she will be, obviously, we're working with Roderick Daly about this as well, but to make sure that, all of the committees are informed, because this impacts everything, not just parks. So definitely we're going to try to get that on track as well.
So now, additional information. The project under City Record Online, company that has the contract currently, that won the lowest bidder, $130 million, was Lendlease Bovis. All right? Lendlease Bovis, I called them myself personally to find out. They are under NDA agreement. They cannot disclose. Okay? So the mere fact that DDC is now reaching out to you, I don't even know, Daniel, did you know that the project was already bidded on?
So the process is internal, and the answer is no. I personally
well.
don't know. I cannot speak for the office whether they knew the bidding process, and I apologize for not having that information. But, it's something that I do know that they have their own internal, they have a process for how the bidding contract works internally in DDC, that will ultimately be paid by New York City Parks. So
Right. So this is the whole thing that I keep pushing. That's why I'm so very adamant and intentional about what I'm saying. Because if a non-disclosure agreement could happen in our community at $130 million, right? And not even the council member, they're now talking to the council member. The state assemblywoman, Bashat, who were the folks that got the money in the first place, if they are now receiving information, we have to be on the front and push back and make sure that they have us. And that is why I was very intentional in stating, even when I personally called the offices and so forth, I told them they need to get all of the potential stakeholders and people that have a specific willingness, aptitude, skill level, as well as the background to be a part of these projects. Because what they will do is turn around and say, oh, they can't find the people in the community to be on the job and do these things. And what will end up happening is that a lot of us will just see all of these outsiders coming in, but nobody in the community is gaining from the opportunity of what is happening in their community. So this is why education, in terms of getting people up on this, being aggressive, being able to pinpoint the businesses and the needed certifications and qualifications to be on a job like that, right? All of that is part of the education, because what will end up happening is that you'll be a whirlwind. It might be a design build. Design builds go pretty quick. You might have maybe a 9-month window, and then they're going to bring out RFPs to ask for outside bids. And sometimes those bids maybe 3 months, not even 3 months, maybe 3 weeks to a month. And if you are not qualified and ready to go, you miss out. So this is why in particular, and Daniel is here to hear it. Daniel, we have to sit down and push DDC and the rest to get monies. There's monies that's allocated for MBEs and everything else. SBS, ESD, which is the Empire State Development, we have to get them down here to get people qualified to be on this project.
Okay, Mr. Lewis. Yes, I'm sorry for stopping you, because I think your argument is more for when this comes before the board. I think what Daniel is saying, because this predates his time here, right? And this issue, what I was talking about, I wanted just to see where the youth center or the recreational center, how close we were, because I think a location was identified. I'm correct, Ms. Frazier, on Nostrand and Foster, that play area?
Foster Park, yes.
Yes.
Right. I just wanted to see where we were with that, because I was looking at where does the youth in our community go for recreational or educational programs. I hear your argument, but I would think, in all fairness, if you called and there was an NDA in place, whatever the reason is for that, Danielle may not know. That might be something that Councilwoman Farah Lewis may know. Bruchette may know. The other elected officials who are involved in this may have answers that Danielle is not favored to and wouldn't know, or they're not disclosing. So I think
No. What I was doing is not putting the blame on Daniel.
No, I'm not saying that you're putting the blame on him. I heard you're talking about, I heard a connection.
Okay.
Where you're saying that our young people needs to have these trainings, so that when these jobs come into our community, that they're able to be part of the building, the employment process. And I do agree with you, we have a lot of development in our community going on at the moment. And I don't know how the hiring process go, because a lot of contractors bring in their own people, and sometimes they might or might not hire people in the community, but it all depends on what that agreement states once they're going to build in there. And I think that those agreements are more at a higher level. So we probably have to figure out with, I would say, Parker, Shad, Lewis, um, you know, if there are coming before them, and is there agreement that, okay, we're going to hire 10% of the people from within the community to work on these projects?
So
If I may say something, Monica McCain Brown speaking.
Yes,
And
Ms.
I
McKay.
think Mr. Lewis alluded to that, similar to what you were saying. I think what he's saying
Yeah.
is that where are the training sites? Just as you're asking about recreation, where also are these training sites? So those people within our community, the youth, the young people, can be trained. So there's no excuse to say we cannot hire from within the community when they come in to do their construction. And I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the point. So therefore, where do we get training centers, recreation, whatever, within the community? And I think that's something Mr. Lewis could take back to Farrah Lewis or whoever. But I think that's the piece he's really trying to drive through, so that we can, as my daughter says, there's a lot of money in this country, so that we can get a piece of the pie. And I think that's the focus really where he's going. And you may
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong.
no,
No, I think you're correct. I did hear him. Daniel, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I will say, thank you for all of these great comments. And it is true that, in terms of my specific knowledge is lacking in certain areas. I will say that as a liaison for the community, that I'm here to represent the voice of Councilmember Lewis, right? So any comment about any part of the process is fair game, and I need to hear it. So I do appreciate the comment, and I want to hear more and more thoughts about this. I believe at the land use committee, you had mentioned the same comment about trying to get more local involvement, local contractors and local people involved in this project. And that's already on the notes. When we have the meeting with them next week, that's the first thing that's come up because you've said it, and I already told the member about it. So
right.
rest assured, your concern is already heard and it's already acknowledged. So hopefully, when we have that meeting, we're going to go into that conversation and ask those questions. We are aware that the contractor has not been so forthcoming with the community about the project. Why is that? Why is there an NDA? And is that because the city is planning to share the information at some point in their own way? Or is there is there an issue that we need to remedy with the contracting process? Are we not intentionally including the MWBEs in our neighborhood? Are we not trying to, not trying to get those young youths and get those OSHA, 30-hour, 10-hour certifications?
Mhm.
So all of these things is something that is considered. So we hopefully, I appreciate the comment. And to Gail's question about sort of where we are in the timeline, this is something that hopefully after next week's meeting, we're going to get some more information on. They have done outreach and they're letting people know what's going on. I believe they're still in the design phase, right? They're still sort of in the planning of exactly the scale of the project and what is feasible to make sure that and to make sure that the impact on the neighborhood during the construction is minimal, right? Because, obviously being right there, there's a lot of potential impact from noise, from construction debris, from a lot of issues. So these things is being considered right now. So in this process, we can also mention, hey, there's been a strong, resounding voice from our community board, the very own community board that this infects, Community Board 17, that we need to be involving local talent and local manpower in this project. Our small businesses in our district need to be considered first. So definitely appreciate the comment, and we're definitely going to be going back into, we're going to definitely be going into that meeting with that.
Thank you, Daniel. Ms. Brackerdine, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just thank you. Daniel, thank you for all this insight and information and for hearing our recommendations. But I would also like to let you know that these were comments that and insight that were already provided. So this is essentially an amplification of requests that were made, were posed, were positioned during other meetings when the initial conversation around the movement of the community center from one park to Nostrand Park. This commentary was provided as well. So you're just getting a reminder of all the things that they came to our committees, they've come to the board, and I think it's important for it to come to the entire board so that everyone has the opportunity, just as Ms. Grandison is indicating, that it should come to the entire board so everyone is able to provide their insight. But it's a concern for me because when is your meeting in comparison to when you'd be able to come in front of us to get additional insight for presentation? Because I think you said that you're meeting with the group next week that's in charge of putting together the community center.
Yes. So I've been trying to get it earlier, and unfortunately, some of it is on our own scheduling issues because we're trying to get the member a solid, almost like an hour to really be briefed, to have time for them to brief us, to give us the stage of the project, and for us to give our community concerns. It cannot be a 15-minute conversation, obviously. It can't even be a 30-minute conversation. Because in order for us to effectively get our voice through to DDC, we need time to be able to work it out. So I'm acting as the scheduler in the office at this time. I'm trying to aim for an early next week to actually have the briefing. They actually emailed me today as a follow-up to see when we'd be available. So we're trying to get the information as soon as possible. And I can already think of several points that have been brought up in this meeting that need to be part of that. And I do appreciate the note about the amplification. And, I will acknowledge that through the changes of the staff and through the changes, both what's happening in district and the offerings from our office, I definitely want to make sure that everyone is assured that a lot of these thoughts are being carried forward and remembered, right? It's not something like, oh, it's a different face in the office. I was briefed on this project when I came in because I knew, even from community members have been part of the board and part of these efforts surrounding the community center, have personally mentioned to me, this is something that's going on. What's happening with it? Back in June, what's happening with our community center? What's all of our youth at Nostrand Playground doing? How can we get them a recreational center or more space for our nonprofits to do their services? So it's definitely something that's been on the forefront of my mind and from the team. So I do appreciate that you acknowledge that that's a reminder. So we're definitely keeping that going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Ms. Brackerdine. Any more questions, concerns, comments for Daniel? I don't want him to feel like he's on a hot seat here for any reason. He's been.
I'm here to do this. I'm here to learn about what your thoughts are, and so I can give you what I know.
And I appreciate that tremendously. Going one more time. Any more comments, questions, concerns? So Daniel, thank you so much for those updates and insights. Appreciate, hope that we see you again at our next meeting. Please feel free to stay on or, I know.
Ms. Grandison,
Yes, ma'am.
can Daniel drop his information in the chat?
He did. I will.
I'll do it again. No problem. No problem.
I'll cut and paste it back in there. So
I just did it because I if you joined a little late, so you got it. And I also posted the assemblies, so please come to those. I'll stick around for a little bit if there's any more internal discussion about the center or what we're doing in the office. But yeah, so definitely, again, open invitation to the participatory budgeting because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in
Yeah.
schools, in public spaces that we would love to get your insight on.
Did you tell us? I know the one at Glenwood Houses is tomorrow, but the one at Flatbush YMCA, did you give us when that is, or it hasn't been scheduled
Monday the
yet?
17th.
I'm sorry? Say that again? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Monday the 17th. Yeah,
Oh,
so that
Monday.
one is at yeah, definitely. So that one's on the west side of the district, where it's Glenwood one side is on the east side of the district. And Monday from 6 to 7, same time at the Flatbush YMCA. And I'll just yeah, so it's in the chat there. So definitely whatever is more convenient for you, please come. I have actually Joanne Bacardine will be doing the presentation on Monday, so I am very appreciative, and the council member is very appreciative of her participating for that one. And also Robin Redmond, who's the executive director for Flatbush Development Corporation, is doing the one for tomorrow. So, and I'll be there at both if you have specific questions about the community center or just want to meet me in person or meet our team in person. I'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
And so to add, Miss Grandison, on Saturday at St. Augustine Church for the 301 Avenue D, Brooklyn Level Up also has a participatory budgeting from 4 to 6 p.m. So anyone that cannot attend, the council member also have an opportunity to attend the one on Saturday at St. Augustine's Church.
Didn't they supposed to have, wasn't it
The one
supposed
in
to have been,
Wyckoff was last week Saturday.
did they have it? Because I passed there and I didn't see anyone.
I am not sure. I
Okay.
plan on attending a few others. I could not have attended last week.
Okay, all right. No, it's gone. So I was just wondering. I know I passed there to stop in and I didn't see. I know that they have an open market there now. So I was just wondering. All right, so this is helpful. Our Ms. Bacardine will be facilitating this one, presenting 1404 Flatbush YMCA. So if you guys are available,
1401, it's 1401 Flatbush Avenue.
1401. Yes.
Yes. Awesome, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel. As we move on, it's 8:31. Couple of people joined us. I see Miss Graham.
Yes, ma'am.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rose Graham.
Welcome, Miss Graham. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I'm sorry for coughing when you were talking. Let me mute myself.
I apologize for my lateness. I was on the train, but I'm happy to engage. I was listening because I do a lot of listening. Honestly, I want to get things in my system. So I was on for a minute. I heard the conversation. I mean, it's just like there's so much knowledge in a little group. I'm listening to the conversation. Some of the stuff I am not aware of, but just from the engagement, I could talk about it because I heard it from the folks who are on the ground. So, I mean, just being a part of this team is just a great thing. Even though I'm an educator for so many years, you still would not know. So, as the church people would say, you can't leave out the assembly. So I thank all of you for being on such a team that is so knowledgeable about what's going on, and people who are staying awake and have their eyes open so that they could support the need of the community and by extension, Brooklyn.
Yes. Thank you, Miss Graham. And
you're welcome. Ma'am.
Telephone number ending in 29. Can you identify yourself, please? The person whose telephone number 9174 and then it ends in 29. Are you willing to identify yourself to say hi? Okay. So let's move on. So I wanted to talk about the planning for the year. I want to spend at least
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, go ahead, ma'am.
It's Patricia Reddock, just signing in. I've been on,
Oh, hi, Miss
but
Rada.
you weren't hearing me. Now you can hear me.
Now I can hear you. Thank you for joining
Okay.
us, Miss Rada. Um, I do apologize for my coughing. I do have a really bad cold. I'm battling. Um, so planning for the year. So we have several events that are scheduled for this year, and I want to get your input on the dates. The first one is the spelling bee. So a few years ago, we haven't been able to do this due to the pandemic. So we're like 3 years, 19, 20, yeah, 3 years out, and we definitely want to do this for this year or for next year, starting next year. One of the things that we constantly hear that given the time and date that we always choose for the spelling bee, it was not inclusive for everyone in the community. And I try my best to be as inclusive as possible. And some of the ideas that were floating around is that we should do this like maybe on one of those holidays, um, except Memorial Weekend. Um, just that way because we usually did it on Saturdays. So it meant that those who were in the Jewish community in our areas that they couldn't attend. It was also that those people who religious 7 days Adventists that they were left out, and anyone who observed the Sabbath were not able to attend or have their kids attend. And in our community, we are a mixture of people, and I want it to be equitable. So I want to get your input on if we, let's see, I think Martin Luther King, this is October, November, December, might be too soon. And the next holiday is President's Day, which is in February. Um, I want to see how you guys thought about that day. Or do you feel that we should continue doing it on a Saturday or, well, not Sundays, because, I find that as a day of rest, people are at church, and I don't want to be so intrusive on a Sunday. So, any comments?
Miss Grandison, I believe that the President's Day would be part of the President's Week from school.
Yes.
So I do believe it's a week.
Yeah, I know sometimes that it falls in line with what is it, winter recess?
Yes.
Right. Let me just state that even although we would usually do this on a Saturday, right? So it was that even although the schools were involved and would get the information out to the kids or maybe prepare them or what, it was the parents who were responsible for getting the kids there. So the parents, because it was a Saturday, right, and we know there's no school, the last one we had, the parents, it was held at, I'm blanking on the school on 37 from Brooklyn. It was held there Saturday. It's a high school, private high school. If the name comes to me or anyone knows the name, 37 from Brooklyn or 38th. It was held there. And what we had some of the schools, showed up as their cheering section, which was really funny, but it was a lot of fun. But the parents are responsible for bringing the kids to the event and not the schools, because we can't do it on a school day. So Ms. Graham, you said President's Day. Are you saying that because it's President's Day and it's recess?
No, the week, and sometimes, like from my experience, kids sometimes go away for that week.
Okay. Any other comments? about using that day, or should we keep it as a Saturday like we have done in the past?
Miss Grandison, the school you're talking about, Vista?
I'm sorry?
The school that you're trying to remember, is it Vista via STA?
I can't remember. Is
The
Vista?
private high school, you said Vista via STA? Because
It's
it's in that area somewhere, but I don't remember the exact address.
yeah, it's on Brooklyn, and I don't think I don't know, is it called
It's not
Vista?
Vista. Okay.
No, no, it's a private high school. Oh, Cristo Rey.
Crystal
That's
Ray,
what
yeah.
Cristo Rey Brooklyn High School, yes. The space was,
It's the one on Foster Avenue.
is it Foster?
Yeah, not too far from Brooklyn.
Okay, so it's East 37th and Foster.
East 37th and Foster, yes.
Okay, thank you. I kept saying it's Brooklyn. Thank you, Miss Brackerty. But
Protest there too.
yeah, one of the things that we also need is a space to do this. Getting a space where we can have at least to say, auditorium is great. We've done it in the school. We've done it also at, well, when it was Tropical Paradise. Those are the two locations. Excuse me. But we need a school. So if anyone has any comments as to I need your input on this. Should we remain doing it on the Saturdays, or should we look at a holiday where we can say it's more equitable for everyone, or we go with what we have or are able to do right now, because the dates may be a bit concerning when it comes to holidays and travel, and how families may utilize that day. Ms. Brackerdine, I see your hand.
Please. In terms of the date, my recommendation would be to consider a couple of points. The first
Okay.
point being that if we do it during the week, if it's a holiday, then the youth potentially won't be able to use their bus passes to get to travel to us, even though the bus passes end by 8:30.
Right.
If we're thinking of the weekend, that means then there again, the fare, the money aspect of it all. And what we find is usually if the kids are out, then it's easier for them to come to us as a part of an after school thing where they can use their bus pass to get around and then go home. And in terms of the weekend, I also have the same perspective that we need to be more inclusive and more accessible to people who, so yes, you were talking about the Jewish faith, but then you also have some Christian faiths that have Sabbath on Saturday. So as we think about that, we would also need to take a look at our calendar, right? The board calendar, to see which dates. Usually a Friday is what's available, but then you have to think about staff. So there are many different moving pieces that we need to consider as we plan. And I just wanted to uplift the things that we need to be mindful of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that input. Mr. Lewis?
So hi, yes, I believe that there are several holiday weeks or vacation weeks, the winter recess in February. Then you have Easter recess. And during those times, yes, it might have some people traveling, but as Ms. Bakardine is saying, if it's during the week, then the usage of their bus pass, if they need to travel that way, and during those weeks with the holiday, less traffic, less everything, and even if you may have to look at, if it's a school, you're gonna have to look at maybe paying the custodian fee and whatever else. But I think that would be a little more conducive, and maybe not towards the end of the week per se, but maybe in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, something like that, so that people wouldn't feel as though, well, Monday is the week now start, Friday is the end of the week. If you put it in between those days there, then I think you could get a substantial amount of folks that will come out and be able to support that program. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Something else we have to consider, that if it's not if school is closed, then they'll have to do a permit.
Yes. For the other times that we've used the schools, they have been so gracious, especially on a Saturday, to get all of that done for us, that we didn't have to pay anything. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a school. It just needs to be a big enough space, I would say, to fit 100 people at least, well ventilated, and and free, of course. So yeah, that's the thing that we're doing, because I do still have all these prices, the prices from 2019 or 2020 that we had gotten, and I would like to definitely give them out to our young people to utilize them. There's a number of laptops also that I'm sure that many kids could use. So we can, I'm sorry, someone saying something? Okay, so we can look, I will try to see what space I could get around that time and how viable it would be to have our spelling bee, because we need to do it.
You could ask downstate.
That's right. That's right. We could ask downstate. Thank you for reminding me about that. That room that we had the retreat in would be great. We don't necessarily need the auditorium unless the response is, really tremendous.
Yes.
But that space would be really great also. So I'm going to look into that tomorrow. I'll ask Mr. Daly, since he had the contact, or I talked to Miss Frazier, and we'll see what we can do about that. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I forgot about downstate conference, and that room that we had the retreat in is really nice. Downstate conference room. Okay, the other thing is the essay writing. I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with Detective Barry, but usually she does that around April, so I will get back to you on her thoughts on that. The CTE forum, Mr. Lewis, I I think our last conversation, and we were looking at either May or June with that, especially for our older people, that I need you to start to write up a plan of what that forum looks like. Who are the possible invited guests? And is it going to be a virtual conversation, or do we want to have a physical in-person forum? Just keep in mind that I said virtual because one of the things that we do have issues with is getting space. If I could get downstate for everything that I need to do for this board year, FY23, I would, but it may not happen. But I need you to create that plan of what that forum looks like. So if that's something that you can start working on,
You said May or June, right?
yeah, May or June. Because I know it's going to take time. If I'm giving you the green light on this to present to the committee what this forum will look like. And I think that will tell us how much work needs to be done. Fair?
All right. When you want me to present that?
So I would think at the next meeting, if you can share
Okay.
what the plan is,
Okay.
I'll be greatly appreciative of that.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Kids and Cops conversation, Ms. Bakrdine and Ms. Rada. If you can share with us what that conversation, is it a virtual conversation, do you think, or a physical conversation? You guys have hosted this in the past, and I'm interested to hear what was the planning process for it? I don't
So
want
for
to,
which project?
the cops and kids and cops conversation.
Miss Pat, would you like to go first? If you're talking, we don't hear you.
You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What it is the teen forum. It's not for the little kids. It's from
Right.
like 13 to 19.
So I can take that. That was the name I saw, Cops and Kids. So we can call it a teen forum.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be, if you're Ms. Granderson, that will be up to you to make the choice. But at the same time, what it was is that that age group kids were the kids who were getting accosted on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought them in with the cops. And what we did, we had them sit in groups of 10 with 2 cops. At first, we will start off by having the kids asking the cops questions. Why this? Why that? Whatever comes to their mind, the parents are not allowed to get involved. This is coming directly from the kids, from their encounter on the street.
Right.
And the cops answering them. And then midway along the line, we time it, and midway along the line, we made a switch. And the cops became the kids, and the kids became the cops. And the question went the other way.
Okay.
And the discussion went both ways. And at the end of the discussion, one person from the okay, let's call them teens, as you say. One person from the teens will get up and give their opinion as to what they got out of the conversation, out of the question, back and forth, switching around. And then one cop will get up and give what they got from it. And then we come to a conclusion. And if it's things to be changed or things that they want done, it will either go back to the precinct or it goes back to the kids. The kids are usually very satisfied when they leave there with what happened between the two. They were very glad that they could switch around, that the cops become kids and the kids become cops. They like that idea because then they could ask the cops certain questions as a kid and they're the cops. And they could also tell the cops how they feel about some of the things that they were getting involved in. And everybody listened and everybody talked about it. The first year we did it, we didn't know how it was going to go. But it was a great success and the kids actually asked about it again. We had that at the Boys and Girls Club on Bedford Avenue. And it went very well. We were planning another one until COVID took over. And then that was the end of that for them.
Can I also chime in here? Yes. Just to the one thing that I'd like to add to what Ms. Pat has said, Ms. Ruddock has said, is that the last time we did it before COVID, it resulted in the boys, that club and the precinct getting together and doing a basketball tournament.
Awesome.
Because the kids kept challenging the jokingly challenging the officers, and the officers would jokingly challenge the children, and then before you know it, that's how it kind of become what became what you now see with the precinct.
And
Okay.
what we also did was at the end of the program, we had a certificate given to each child, each teen that appeared. We gave them a certificate to take back to school so the teachers and the principals can see what they are involved in when they're out of school, and it worked for them.
Okay. What's parents?
Volunteer hour, yeah.
Miss Bacardine and Miss Reddock, how did let me see how to frame it. How did it go in terms of getting those kids who had an encounter with the police? How did you
Send it
recruit
to the-
those kids?
We send it to the schools in the district.
Okay.
We started with the junior high school and high schools, and we send the letters.
Oh, okay.
However, the letters to be written up, we send the letters out to the schools in the district.
Awesome.
And then they
Also
had to get there.
got-
Some parents came and some just gave them permission, wrote the permission slip, that it was okay for the kids to be there.
Some,
Oh, okay.
and the other thing I'd like to also add to this as well is that we also had a captive audience with the youth that participate with the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we had it. So of course they had to be a part of it because
Right.
we had it there with Mr. King. Mr. King was very, very, very gracious in helping us to do that.
Okay. Awesome. Mr. Lewis, you had a question?
Yeah, so for the future event that's coming up, are we gonna sometime the engagement in terms of relating to that, I think is what that is, monthly meeting that they have at the 67 precinct,
Yes.
and relating that, is there a way we could start to look at, since that event, we might have to do it again and do it again a couple of times, but is there a way for us to be able to gauge how effective that is in terms of how the cops relate? Because I don't want it to be that they send the same cops every time. And the last time, not to be what you call it again, discontented with what happened, because I was there, I was a part of the event. But most of those cops that were there, for the most part, it seemed as though those cops were associated by some part or indifferent with the community service part of the precinct. Sometimes the
Mr.
folks.
Sorry,
Mr. Lewis,
Mr.
I'm not,
Lewis?
Mr. Lewis.
Lewis?
Mr. Lewis, I'm not understanding what you're saying. At the same thing Ms. Grandison is asking about? The same thing we were just talking about? That's what you're talking about?
Right, I'm talking about.
No, sir. I think you're talking about the youth happening that
Not the
Thursday.
youth
What we're talking
happening.
about is something
Absolutely
different.
not. No.
Oh,
The
Youth
same
happening.
the same engagement with the police that was at the Bedford YMCA. I was there.
No, it's not at the Boys and Girls Club, not at the
Yeah,
YMCA.
okay. Okay, I'm saying I'm saying the Boys and Girls Club. Sorry. Next to
Okay.
the church
Okay.
on Bedford Avenue. Right?
Okay.
No, what I'm saying, for the most part, those cops, right, are not really the cops that you engage in the street with. Now, those cops might be the ones that volunteer to be a part of the program.
No,
The
it's
only-
not. No, it's not, Mr.
Yeah,
Mr.
he's
Lewis. No, it's
incorrect.
not.
Yeah.
Those cops are on the street. Those were regular cops that were on patrol, and some of them were the NCO cops. They were all cops that are on the street at various times of the 24-hour service. All of them were on the street. Some of them were patrol cops, some of them were NCO, and even if they were NCO officers, they were out on the street. We didn't choose any particular cop. Those cops
No,
are on the street.
I did not say you did. What I'm saying is that I don't want it to become monotonous in terms of having those same folks, because for the most part, put it this way, the gentlemen that were there were extremely friendly, and a lot of them, some of them from the neighborhood are not. Those guys have a different approach than the other ones who come from outside of our neighborhood, who do not understand our culture, number one, believe that, you know, certain behaviors or certain things, they will take it to another level. And some of them come with a fearful attitude, and that is why the engagement with the young people or young black females, young black males is as it is. So I want to know, you know, again, when we have those programs, how is it reciprocated in terms of the actual police actually doing
Okay.
something different?
Mhm.
You understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand what you I understand what you're saying now.
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying now. However, when we have those programs, we cannot bring in cops from other precincts. We have to use our area, the 67 from 95th, 98th Street to Clarkson Avenue,
You're
to
not
Bedford
understanding
Avenue.
what I'm saying.
And yes.
I was
Miss
okay.
Lewis,
Let me
okay, okay.
let me put it
All
this
right,
way.
I'm
The-
done. Miss
Miss
Grandison, I'm
Reddock,
done.
Miss Reddock, I have one quick question.
Hold
Are
on,
detectives a part
guys.
of that mix?
I'm here.
No, Miss
Are
Graham
d-
is asking if detectives are
if
part of.
detectives are part of that mix?
Detectives, no, they don't get involved in that.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. You understand? The folks that are on the street, for the most part, like I said, from the people that I saw there, yes, maybe those might be a little bit more thing, but like I said, I have had personal engagements with 67, with other people, into particular, as she asked, the detectives, and they are like a law unto themselves. So
Okay,
this is
so
what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying?
Mr. Lewis, I I hear what you're saying. I think the question is, Miss Pat, or is it a volunteer? Is it like, do you guys ask the cops to volunteer?
No, because of the fact that each cop have assignments for every day.
Right.
So let's just say it's gonna happen next Friday. Okay, let's just say it's next Friday for conversation's sake. When it goes to the commander, whoever the commander is, he knows ahead of time. From we start to plan it, he knows ahead of time.
Right.
If we have 30 cops on duty, let's just say we have 30 cops on duty, they have to see, they cannot leave the street empty. So they
Right.
will say, okay, 2 from sector A, you will go. Sector B may not go. This one may not go because there's
Right.
the area might be a hot, heavy area. So that those cops have to go out there.
Right.
And then he will choose whichever set that is available. Because
Yes.
you can't just pull them off the street. Because let's just
Right.
say, for instance, I'm just using fictitious time. Let's just say, for instance, Church on Nostrand is a hot spot. They will not take the cops off of that hot spot.
Right.
They will leave the cops that have the hot spot there. The detectives that he's talking about, detectives do not walk the street. When detectives are out there, detectives are going to investigate a specific situation that comes to
Right.
them. And they will have to go to Miss Grandison's house, Miss Reddock's house, or whatever. They do not patrol the street, the detectives. So they are
Correct.
never involved.
Right. So I think,
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, I'm glad that Miss Pat explained it to you, because when I heard you said detectives, I'm like, they don't fall into that fold. They're not patrol men. But are you saying, Mr. Lewis, are you talking about like those undercover?
All of those. And
No,
in
they
particular,
don't fall into that, Miss Grandison.
but
Okay.
Miss
that what you
Grandison, they don't fall into that.
They don't fall. And I think that's what Mr. Lewis is getting at.
right. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Is
The
that
undercover cops, because
right?
they're the
These are the
ones.
people that you have issue with.
We would
Not
never
the,
use undercover cops.
Right.
but what I'm
No,
No,
they
Miss
don't
undercover.
fall into
Not
that.
undercover. Well, I'm
No,
sorry. I think
I
you used the wrong word. I'm
understand what
sorry.
he's saying.
It's not undercover, I should say plainclothes police.
Plain clothes.
No, they
Plainclothes.
don't fall into that category.
They don't
They
fall
don't
into
fall
that
into that.
category. Okay, so it seems
But,
this is the commander's
mm,
choice of who he pulls, as Miss Pat said, because based on, you know, who's on duty and the hot spots that night, he makes that judgment call of which of his officers are there that can work with us that night. So I don't want to debate this as who should or shouldn't be there. What I want us to do is how to get that meaningful conversation for those who are there, because a cop is a cop,
Thank you.
you know,
Thank
they're
you.
all there. So let's focus more on that, because we don't have the pleasure of saying, I want A, B, C, or D, right? There's a city agency that's not run by us, and we need to respect what the commander, he thinks is best to get those people. So we will work.
Miss Grandison, can I just say something quick? I do understand what you're saying. I understand what Ms. Reddock saying, and I understand what Mr. Lewis is saying. Like, you know what? I'm an assistant principal. I'm not going to sit here and say we have great teachers everywhere. We have some bad teachers too. So I'm not saying they're bad cops, but I think what he's saying is the cops who are engaging with the children or the youth are not necessarily the cops who give a hard time. I got stopped by police myself.
Thank you very much. That's all I'm saying.
I get stopped by the police.
I get what he's saying, but Ms. Raddock is also saying that, and I don't know who were the people there last time. Maybe those were who was available. Once again,
Yes, so that's why I say I do understand what everybody's saying.
but the NCOs are on the streets also. The patrols are on the streets. Just because someone is in a patrol car doesn't mean that they don't stop kids or they don't stop people. They're the ones who are patrolling.
That's right. They do.
Detectives do not. Detectives investigate crimes. They go
That's where Miss Grandison, sometimes they stop people.
There you go.
The detectives?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what that. I don't know what kind of. I don't know what kind of a detective you're talking about, but the detectives that I'm talking about don't stop people. They go out there to investigate. Miss Grandison called them because they had a problem in our house that was given to them before. They will go directly to Miss Grandison's house.
Right.
And investigate and question and ask. And when they're finished and they get their information from Miss Grandison, they go back to the precinct and write up whatever reports they have to do. They don't patrol the streets and stop people.
That's not what a detective's job is about. It's on a case-by-case basis. That's what detectives solve: murders, robbery, those cases. You have the I'm sorry, I keep saying undercover, the plainclothes police, but we don't know at what point in time any of those officers, they may switch up. They might be in plain clothes today. They might be in uniform tomorrow. I can't speak for how the deputy inspector has his people, what role they play, but I think at this point, we just have to understand that we are getting those cops that he thinks might be the best. We could say, well, we would like some plainclothes police that's out there on the street to be there or what. But I will tell you that I don't think any cop who volunteers to do this or is there that is doing this is going to go in to a room with kids and show a nasty side and say, yeah, I pulled you over because you're this or you do this. I don't think you're going to get that, right? Because you're saying that you want the real ones out there. How they act in that room is going to be completely different, or they may just, speak the truth to what they're seeing on the streets. And this is why we do the things we do. So I think we just have to go with what we get, and how those officers interact and engage with the young people at that time. I'm going to take Miss Bakradine. I see your hand because it's 9:07, and I want to be
I
respectful.
just want to add, just add one bow to what you were saying, Ms. Grandison. What happens when we do the role play? Because what happens is a role play, right? We have the officers acting as officers and the children asking them questions. Yo, why'd you stop me? I mean, what's the big idea? I was just trying to walk across the street. I mean, what's your problem? So that's how they approach it, as a role play. And then we turn around and we flip it, and we have the children acting like officers in what they think the officers should be doing. And then the officers act like the kids, and they ask them. And that's how the engagement happens.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that piece so that we don't need to belabor the point about who they get and how they're going to get it, because we end up getting who's available for that moment in time.
Right.
But when the role play begins is when the good stuff happens.
May I just add something, Ms. Grandison? I think also, with all due respect, that part of it is to break down barriers also.
Yes.
you know,
Mhm.
to build rapport. So I
Yeah.
think even some of those who are coming, they might be able to see another side and understand where they should be with the
Exactly.
community and with the children.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
part of it is to
Thank
build
you.
rapport and to
Well, I
break
think that's the
barriers
whole
down.
idea behind
Yes.
it.
Yes, to break down those barriers and interactions. Thank you, Miss McCain. Mr. Lewis, your hand is still up.
Oh no.
No, let me take it down. I say
Okay.
what I have to say already. I just it is what it is.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So from what I'm hearing, we will have this event. Yes? Because I'm really eager to see this conversation. I'm really eager to see this. So I will definitely, if I may ask Miss Pat and Miss Backerdine to work on getting this done, because you guys have all the details and the knowledge around it. Would that be fair?
That's okay with me.
Okay, and you can let me
ma'am.
know what, the time frame for it, and we'll take it from there. Love it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so
You're
it's
welcome.
9:09. We're gonna stop there for tonight. Was there any new business that needed to be brought before us? Anything that anyone wanted to share? Okay, hearing nothing.
It's not really business. It's the I know the people who Tanya Lewis, the young lady from I Will Graduate, is having an event at Barclays on the 24th. I could send you the flyer, Miss Grandison.
Yes, please.
Yeah, she's a big thing at Barclays on the 24th.
Who is she? Tanya
She's
Will.
from the I Will Graduate program.
Okay.
Tanya.
All right, send the flyer and I'll share it
Yes.
with the members.
Yes, ma'am.
So at 9:10 p.m., I want to call closure to the meeting of the Education and Youth Committee. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Joan Alexander Bakardine moves to adjourn the Youth and Education Committee meeting at 9:10 p.m.
Thank you.
Rose Graham, second.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming. Sorry that I coughed so much during this process. Hope to be better by next month. But thank you for being here. Have a good night and please stay safe out there.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.